Okay.
Yeah.
Just within 2 or 3 minutes we will
No
start.
issue.
Okay.
Hello everyone. We are going to start our session. Good afternoon everyone. To keep on the spirit of intellectual exercise among the faculty members, researchers, scholars, students, especially during the period of outbreak of COVID-19, Droplakana College has decided to conduct faculty development program and a series of web lecture and webinars. This journey started in June 2020, and we have conducted one faculty development program and 6 webinars so far. This is the 7th webinar that we are going to start. We all know that the topic of today's webinar, the new education policy and higher education, has a greater relevance as we are going to shift from the existing pattern to a new one. As prime stakeholders, we have to pay great importance to the issues and challenges, especially in relation to higher education. I, Jamini Kumar Soika, on behalf of the organizing committee, welcome Pranab Nath, IS Secretary, Water Resources and Labour Commissioner, Government of Kerala, the resource person of today's webinar. I also welcome Dr. Yogananda Sud, Principal and the Chairperson of the Organizing Committee, Dokwasana College, Mr. Chittakumar Kut, Vice Principal of Dokwasana College, all honorable participants, and my friends to this webinar. I do expect that your kind active participation would make the program a grand success. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you. Now I request Dr. Yogananda Sud, Principal, Dokwasana College, to deliver his inaugural speech. Sir, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Honorable Mr. Pranab Nath, sir, IS Secretary, Water Resource and Labour Commissioner, Coast of Kerala. Mr. Chittakumar Kos, Honorable Vice Principal of this college. Honorable Coordinator of this webinar, Sri Jamini Kumar Soikia, HOD, Department of English, participants from different institutions, and my colleagues. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you to this national webinar on new education policy and higher education. Dokwasana College, as an institute of higher education, has decided to conduct a series of faculty development programs and webinars during this period of COVID-19 outbreak. And our humble effort is to keep on an intellectual exercise even in the troublesome period. Dear friends, we all know that we are going to implement the new education policy 2020. The aim of this new education policy is to have an education system by 2040 that is second to none, with equitable access to the highest quality education for all learners, regardless of social or economic background. This policy envisions a complete overhaul and re-energizing of the higher education system to overcome the challenges that we have right now and thereby deliver high quality higher education with equity and inclusion. The new education policy's vision includes some key changes to the current system of higher education, institutional restructuring of and consolidation, more holistic and multidisciplinary education, optimal learning environments, and support for students, internationalization, student activity and participation, financial support for students, motivated, energized, and capable of faculty, equity, and inclusion in higher education, etc., are some of the major prioritized issues related to higher education policy. As stakeholders of higher education, we all have to pay too much attention to the problems that we have been facing in the existing educational policy and how we can cope up with the new paradigm as envisaged by new education policy 2020. It is not so easy to go through in such a transcendental state unless we all become participative, attentive, and collaborative. It is a time for all of us to take this responsibility to implement a new education policy 2020 in a holistic way. I do hope that this webinar would focus on the issues mentioned earlier and also would open up the way to take the challenges in effective way so that India can have an education system by 2040 that is second to none, with equitable access to the higher quality education for all learners, regardless of social or economic background. With these words, I inaugurate this webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for your inaugural speech. As for the agenda, right now we have a brief introduction of the keynote speaker. Now I request my colleague Rinko Hazarika to carry on this part. That is a brief introduction to the keynote speaker. Rinko, please.
Good afternoon, all participants. Today we have amidst us Mr. Pranab, who will deliver his lecture on the national education policy with special reference to higher education. So I would like to introduce Mr. Pranab Nath to everyone, to all the participants. So we have invited Pranab Nath, IAS, as the resource person of today's webinar. Right now, he is serving as Secretary, Water Resources and Labour Commissioner, Government of Kerala. He passed HSLC from Ulubari HS School, Guwahati in 1991. Passed HS from Cotton College in 1993 and BSc in Economics from Cotton College in 1996. He is a postgraduate in Sociology of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, of the batch 1999. After his postgraduate, he worked as music composer, harmonium accompanist for theater for 3 years, 7 months. He also served as Assistant Civilian Staff Officer, Ministry of Defense for 2 years, 10 months. He passed examination of IAS in 2005. He has experience of serving as administrator in different posts in Kerala and Orissa. He was in LB as NAA training and assistant collector under training at Calicut from 2005 to 2007. He served as sub-collector and sub-divisional magistrate in Tiruvalla for 9 months, sub-collector and sub-divisional magistrate in Devikulam for 2 years, 2 months, project director, Bhumi, Keralam, and register CDIT, Department of Revenue, Government of Kerala for 1 year, 2 months, executive director, Kerala Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Agency for 1 year, 1 month, mission director, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme for 1 year, 3 months, district collector and district magistrate, Patana Mitta for 11 months, district collector and district magistrate Kollam for 11 months, director of employment, Government of Orissa for 5 months, CEO of Orissa Livelihood Mission, and additional secretary, Department of Panchayat for 3 years, 3 months, director of handicraft, Government of Orissa for 5 months, director of industries, CEO of Pranab, Orissa for 1 year, 7 months. He has contributed in commendable way for different awards in Kerala and Orissa. Recognitions are Future Government E-Governance Award for CDIT for digitization of sooner lives at Archives in Kerala in 2012, National Best Award for Livelihood Development Program for Orissa in 2017, National Best Award for implementing DDU CKY scheme in Orissa in 2018, Best Award of MSME for Orissa in 2020. He is also a singer and a poet. He has sung famous Orissa modern songs titled Manna Galita Batta Sala Pate, Sun Behind a Bamboo Jungle, is his remarkable published poetry collection. Sir, it is known that apart from your professional expertise, your interest in education, social development, singing, poetry have placed you as a recognized one in national level. It is also noteworthy that you have been playing a key role during this hour of global pandemic COVID-19 to deal with the issues of migrant labor in Kerala. Your expertise as a commendable administrator and intellectual debater is really valuable for us. We are really happy that you have accepted our invitation to grace the occasion with your speech on the topic, New Education Policy and Higher Education. I honestly expect that your speech will enthrall the audience comprising of faculties, research, scholars, and students. Now I request you to take over the session. Sir, please.
ধন্যবাদ ৰিংকু হাজৰিকা ইমান সুন্দৰ মোৰ ইন্ট্ৰডাকশন দিয়াৰ বাবে বহুত দীঘলীয়া ইন্ট্ৰডাকশন কিন্তু হলেও শুনি ভাল লাগিছে আপুনি গোটেইখিনি মোৰ বিষয়ে কালেক্ট কৰিছে অধ্যক্ষ শ্ৰী ডক্টৰ যোগানন্দ খুট মহোদয়, মোৰ বন্ধুবৰ, আমি কলেজত একেলগে পঢ়া কটন কলেজত, যদিও মই আজি 23 বছৰৰ পিছত তেওঁক এই ৱেবিনাৰ ইলেক্ট্ৰনিক মাধ্যমৰ যোগেৰে দেখাৰ সুযোগ পাইছো। বন্ধুবৰ মৰমৰ শ্ৰী যামিনী কুমাৰ শইকীয়া, প্ৰধান অধ্যাপক ঢকুৱাখানা কলেজ, আৰু আজি উপস্থিত থকা বিশিষ্ট শিক্ষাবিদ, শিক্ষক, ছাত্ৰ, গৱেষক সকলোলৈকে পোনপ্ৰথমে মোৰ নমস্কাৰ জনাইছো। অসমৰ সৈতে জড়িত থকা যিকোনো অনুষ্ঠানে হওক, তাৰ লগত আকৌ এবাৰ জুৰি যাবলৈ পালে মন বহুত ভাল লাগে। অলপতে কিছুদিন আগতে আমাৰ বন্ধু ডক্টৰ প্ৰাণজিৎ বৰাইও এটা সুন্দৰ অনুষ্ঠান কৰিছিল জীৱনৰ সাধনাৰ ওপৰত। তাৰ আগেও ডক্টৰ অখিল ৰঞ্জন দত্ত ডাঙৰীয়াই গুৱাহাটী বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ পৰা মজদুৰ যিবিলাক ইণ্টাৰনেল মাইগ্ৰেণ্ট শ্ৰমিকৰ ওপৰত, যেহেতু মই কেৰালা চৰকাৰৰ লেবাৰ কমিশ্যনাৰ হিচাপেও কাম কৰোঁ, তাৰ ওপৰত এটা ৱেবিনাৰ কৰিছিল।
Sir, please unmute yourself.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, right now.
Yeah. It's okay. I'll start it. আজিৰ এই অনুষ্ঠানৰ অধ্যক্ষ আৰু কলেজৰ অধ্যক্ষ ডক্টৰ যোগানন্দ খুট মহোদয়, 23 বছৰৰ পিছত আজি এই অনুষ্ঠানৰ যোগেৰে মই লগ পোৱা মোৰ বন্ধু ইংৰাজী বিষয়ৰ প্ৰধান অধ্যাপক মৰমৰ শ্ৰী যামিনী কুমাৰ শইকীয়া, মোৰ বিষয়ে বহলাই চিনাকি কৰি দিয়া শ্ৰী ৰঞ্জু হাজৰিকা, উপস্থিত শিক্ষাবিদসকল, ছাত্ৰ ছাত্ৰী আৰু গৱেষকসকল। মই বহুদিন হ'ল অসমৰ পৰা দূৰত আছো, কিন্তু যোৱা কিছুদিনৰ পৰা চলি অহা ৱেবিনাৰ বিলাকৰ যোগেৰে নতুন ভাৱেৰে অসমৰ লগত এটা সম্পৰ্ক স্থাপন কৰাৰ সুযোগ পাইছো। সেই সূত্ৰে যেহেতু মই শ্ৰম আয়ুক্ত হিচাপেও কেৰালা চৰকাৰৰ কাম কৰোঁ, যোৱা কিছুদিনৰ আগতে গুৱাহাটী বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ ডক্টৰ অখিল ৰঞ্জন দত্তৰ তত্বাৱধানত মই কেৰালাৰ পৰা অসমলৈ উভতি অহা শ্ৰমিকসকলৰ বিষয়ে এটা ৱেবিনাৰত অংশগ্ৰহণ কৰিছিলোঁ। কিছুদিন আগতে আমাৰ বন্ধুবৰ ডক্টৰ প্ৰাণজিৎ বৰাৰ জীৱনৰ সাধনাৰ ওপৰত এটা ৱেবিনাৰতো মই যোগ দিছিলোঁ। সেই সময়তে বন্ধুবৰ যামিনী শইকীয়াই মোৰ সৈতে সম্পৰ্ক কৰাত মই কি বিষয়ত ক'ব খোজো বুলি সোধাত মই কিছু চিন্তা কৰি ভাবিলো যে নতুন শিক্ষানীতিৰ ওপৰত কম। যদিও মোৰ শ্ৰী ৰঞ্জু হাজৰিকাই কোৱা বহলাই কোৱা মোৰ চিনাকিত আপোনালোকে যদি চাই, শিক্ষাৰ বিষয়ত মই আমোলা হিচাপে বা চৰকাৰী কৰ্মচাৰী হিচাপে বহুত সময় কাম কৰা নাই, কিন্তু শিক্ষানীতিৰ ওপৰত ক'ব খোজাৰ প্ৰধান কাৰণটো হ'ল শিক্ষা এনেকুৱা এটা বিষয় য'ত এটা ডিচিপ্লিন বা এটা সীমাবদ্ধতাৰ ভিতৰত তাক বান্ধি ৰাখিব নোৱাৰি। এডুকেশ্যন cannot be tied up or restricted in a particular discipline. মই যদি মোৰ আলোচনাটো নতুন শিক্ষানীতিৰ সৈতে মই চৰকাৰী জীৱনত বিভিন্ন বিষয় বিভাগত কাম কৰি তাৰ সৈতে জুৰিব খোজো, বোধহয় আপোনালোকৰ কাৰণে শুনিবৰ বাবে ভাল হ'ব। কাৰণ শিক্ষানীতিৰ বিষয়ত আপোনালোকে ডেফিনেটলি I am sure all of you might have understood till now the basic importance, as also Dr. Sood pointed out, the broad principles of new education policy, that is National Policy on Education 2020. Why I want to link it to the context that I have directly experienced over last almost 20 years of my administrative career, 16 years almost in IAS and 4 years before IAS. Being a student of JNU, where I have got the opportunity to be trained, to be a student in an atmosphere which promotes multidisciplinary approach in education. Perhaps JNU is one of the institutions which was pioneer in this field, that a student of economics can also study education, history, geography, international relations, as some select papers. That gives some kind of a prior understanding for someone like me who can appreciate the importance of this new education policy. Secondly, my connection with London School of Economics for a short period of time because of my service-related work also made me understand or to appreciate the significance and the importance of having a multidisciplinary approach to understand subject, context, and to link education to the larger economic sphere. Normally, problem what happens whenever in a country like ours, which also has a glorious history of education, which traces back to maybe thousands of years. But perhaps there may be a difference. The educational process or system or structure that we are talking about today, it might have been different from that. Of course, if we look into the glorious past of education, starting from the days of the Vedas or the Upanishads, where there has to be the students going to the guru's place, the gurukuls, toll. আমি যদি শংকৰদেৱৰ কথা কওঁ, মহেন্দ্ৰ কন্দলী টোলৰ শংকৰদেৱে পঢ়িছিল। তো আমি যদি চাওঁ যে শিক্ষা প্ৰাচীন ভাৰততে হওক বা মধ্যকালীন ভাৰতবৰ্ষতে হওক, শিক্ষাৰ এটা পৰম্পৰা, the tradition of teacher and the student has been continuing over a period of time in India. But there has been hiccups in course of time. We have been trying. There has been a lot of change once this British rule came to India. The importance of English education, modern education, maybe the purpose may be different, but have been experimented in the country. When India got independent, India also experimented with broadly two policies till now. One redefined in an existing policy. 1968, the country started with the policy on education. Tarpisot 1986, Tarpisot heitu policy re কিছু সংশোধন কৰি 1992 চনত আৰু এতিয়া আমি নতুন শিক্ষা নীতি পাইছো আমি 2020 If we try to understand like how we are evolving in as a student to get linked to education policy or education system, as a teacher, as a curriculum, as an assessment process, somehow we are going closer and closer to fill the gap between education and the job requirement. If we see some of the best countries where skill, education, and learning are in some kind of a continuum, we can give the example some of the countries where I got an opportunity to visit and also understand the education system, the skilling framework, and also the linkages to industry and the economy as a whole. Few countries like I would like to name because this will be quite interesting if we try to understand the new economic policy, how we are actually going closer to those examples, those are in front of us. One such country is German. If we see the education system of German, we find that they have a huge importance and emphasis given on the vocationalization of education. The students, after certain basics, numericals and cognitive ability, there is given a opportunity or choice to the student to get enrolled into the industrial and larger economic system where they can choose or choose the discipline they are willing to do, which they call it dual VAT system in German. It basically links what we have studied, what curriculum is being offered to us as a student, the way we are being evaluated by our teachers, the way we are being assessed by the academic system is actually making us gradually prepared for the future world, where we are going to work or we are going to contribute to the economic system. Another country which has taken this thing very seriously, which is the most skilled country in the world, is South Korea. I got an opportunity to be in South Korea for 2 months in 2014. And I got how the different systems of the economy, whether it is health, whether it is agriculture, whether it is education, whether it is the new startup ecosystem, all have been flawlessly, flowingly related to the research, to the academic discipline. And in fact, perhaps that's why South Korea is the country with the largest employees are skilled, that is 96%, which is higher than Germany, even which is 75%. In America, in US, it is something around 52%. That's what the study says. And in our country, it is something around 5% only. So some other countries like this who have good in education skilling linkages are Taiwan, Israel. I'm saying these 3-4 countries because there I got some opportunity to spend some time and understand their education and economic system. And perhaps I think these are the examples in front of us when India started thinking about having a paradigmatic shift. Of course, it is not, we can't say that there is no continuity between both the policies, that is previous modified policy of 1992 and the 2020. But so far as higher education is concerned, there has been a huge shift in terms of taking into mind the professionalization, vocationalization of education, keeping in mind of these countries which have actually proved some examples in front of us. Few other things like which also attracted me to speak on the topic is like the difficulties, the struggle, or the situations that I have encountered in various of my postings. Somehow I find that this education policy can have a relevance in addressing those issues. One is that I worked as I was introduced, I said I worked in livelihood mission for a long period of time. Almost 3.5 years I worked in Orissa as a mission director for a livelihood project. There I understood few things where large number of development professionals in promoting concept like farmers producers organization, in stabilizing and supporting the panchayat level federations coming from the SHGs, the self-help groups, with a huge amount of professional support. But unfortunately, none of our educational curricula or courses or any kind of a skill program is having this in mind. We found that when I was promoting few of the farmers producers organization in some of the most backward and rural parts of KBK Orissa, that is, you can say Koraput, Bolangir, Rayagada kind of places, it was a huge challenge for facilitating this and organizing the old women come together, forming an organization and making the path for future entrepreneurial growth. Huge facilitation process is required, but there is no university graduate or no students directly coming in such a professionalized way. So there is a skill gap. We find that our economic system, our job market, our existing institutions or organizations are demanding certain skill set which are essential. There are unemployed people, but these skill sets are lacking to them. So one convincing thing that I found which can help this new education policy is working out the linkages between these agriculture, agri-research institutions, other universities, or the higher education institutions like this policy talks about, if they can have these linkages where system requirement is there, functional prerequisite of the current system, those can fill the gap. It can improve employability, it can improve professionalism, and it can help also creating a skilled nation. Another thing, like which just now I, as water secretary in the government, we are doing large number, because water secretary in Kerala government actually look after drinking water, sanitation, sewerage board, groundwater, interstate water, soil, sea erosion, sea wall making. So a huge plethora of irrigation. So there I found, when I was reviewing my officers in various projects bringing about, one such project was, we wanted to build some sea wall in some of the places near Ernakulam district where there is a large amount of erosion. And we have a department, huge department, about 20,000 people, but we are not being able to build up. We have MTechs, we have BTechs, we have environmental engineers, but this particular expertise, we don't have it. Our educational system, actually, they are saying that we have to go to National Institute of Ocean Technology, we have to go to IIT Roorkee to get expertise. My point is that every organization in the government are needing just not basic civil engineering, so many specialized skills, which education systems, whether it is in engineering, whether it is agriculture, they are not being able to cater to it. So education system, when you're talking about defragmentation, when you're talking about multidisciplinarity, when you're talking about, these are the certain elements we have to cater into. Another concept, like which I feel, I was also CEO for Startup Orissa Mission. There I found that this linkages, startup is somehow maybe in a very unorganized or maybe less organized, rather we can say, way, startup kind of an concept is linking between the education, incubation, coming of startup as per requirement of an economic system or an organizational system. So these linkages have to be promoted more. We can have more tinkering labs, like hotel tinkering labs in colleges. Then we can have more incubation centers. We can understand that, okay, the local municipal administration has this kind of requirements for flood control, for disaster prediction system, for urban parking. So if our Department of Civic Science, Sociology can focus on that, the MSW can focus on that. So it is some kind of a understanding the organizational requirement, various systemic requirement, placing and linking the education system, preparing curricula, giving more innovativeness, flexibility, and linking them to it. I think that only can have a productive education system which has a direct relevance to the job market and the economic systems and the subsystems. So until and unless we try it up, we fix it, the education system will never be able to prove it as a fruitful. So that's why I find that there's a huge relevance of this new education policy. Of course, since 2013 onward, India was taking about something called NSQF. You might be knowing it. It's called National Skill Qualification Framework. Being a skill director, government of Orissa, I was also some part engaged while this concept was growing up. And this talks about basically some kind of a providing skill rankings. That is like, if I am a motor mechanic, whether I'm a grade 1 or grade 2 or grade 9, I am a motor mechanic for a scooter, or I am a motor mechanic for a BMW tire. So I know how to handle screw. I am a welder. Whether I do a welding in a local shop or whether I do a welding in a ship repairing. So there are whether I do a welder in an aeroplane. So there can be a huge gradations, skill framework can be established, and how gradually it can be understood to converge with the education system by properly creating infrastructure in the education institution, by training the teachers, and also accordingly creating curriculum in those ways. So this kind of a linkages, because otherwise skill is working as a separate mutually exclusive system, education is working as a separate mutually exclusive system. We until and unless we try to understand, then what is happening, we do 5 years of degree either in any course, whether it is a law, whether it is an agriculture, whether it is a sociology, whether it is an English, and after that we immediately have to do another course for getting a job. So banking sector has a huge opportunity. There are a large number of opportunities coming in: artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, machine learning. There are certain things, blockchain. A lot of things are coming. Those things, until and unless we link education system also to it, gradually we will prove ourselves not to be fruitful for the economic system. So I think this new education policy somehow has talked about, particularly in the higher education segment, even though it has revamped the existing 10+2 system into 5+, 3+3+4. there is some more importance given to the lower segment. But there has been, if I see the entire 64 document of the new policy, if we read out thoroughly, carefully, and integratedly, we find that higher education has been given a huge paradigmatic shift in the entire policy. It also talks about three things, like, as Dr. Sood also mentioned and maintained, is there of a holistic and integrated approach. The entire policy talks about few things which have to be integratedly understood. One is an individual's personal accomplishment, which is like we all as an individual, we have certain sense of a accomplishment. It may link to physical fitness also, like things like yoga, meditation, which are also his relevance. If we are a educated person, but also not a good health, better health, I think perhaps we will not be able to, as a citizen, will not be able to do justice to ourselves, to our family, and to the place where you work. Another things like which this policy also highlight, I think, which is little bit more emphasis than the earlier policy, is the importance for this value system. These values may be constitutional value, the value may be the heritage, the Indian society, starting from the days of the Upanishads, or starting from the great Indian learnings from institutes like Taxila, Nalanda. It talks about huge amount of reference of all these things. It links somehow that the cultural heritage continuity and should also be a part of a morally sound nation, to building in the nation building process. The third component, it talks about definitely vocationalization and the skilling, where it talks about three components, that is ASK, attitude, skill, and knowledge. We may be knowledgeable, we may be skilled, but attitude, the correct attitude is important for a student and for everybody for that matter. So it talks about a holistic and integrated effort of personality building, an aware nation, aware citizen, and also a skilled individual. So this integrity and holistic approach it talks about. Few other things which it talks about is very relevant. Me being I have seen my father was a school teacher, and whole life he was telling about this thing, something I find relevant in this policy, that is restoration of the prestige to teachers. This is something very important. And it talks about empathically in this policy. Many places it has referred. And this is something very important. Until and unless we make teaching a lucrative profession and respected by all, somehow in course of time, the respect that the teachers are having was sliding down. This has to be regained. And this policy talks about it, and talking at the highest level, definitely it makes sense. It will have repercussion in the entire structure. Another thing it talks about, which is very important, the importance of the vulnerable vernacular language and the classical language. So vernacular language, as you know, India has almost 1,652 dialects. Almost in UNESCO also is saying 194 such dialects are in the dying stage. So it is important to give importance to vernacular medium. We all are, most of us maybe today present, we all are educated to mother tongue or Assamese. I was educated in Assamese medium. I think most of us, Zamini also will appreciate, most of us might have been educated through vernacular medium. So it is important also to, nobody is saying that you need to learn English. As Dr. Sood also mentioned, it talks about internationalization, international collaboration. Again, foreign university coming to India, we going to, so a lot of things are being talked about. But it should not be at the cost of learning the vernacular. Whatever, it may be Tamil, it may be Malayalam, it may be Bengali, it may be Oriya, it may be Assamese, it may be Punjabi. It may be... So this is important, and the policy has given importance. It has also given importance for classical language like Persian, Sanskrit, Pali. It has also mentioned about Pali. There's mentioned in the policy about Pali, which is a very welcome thing, I think. As a nation, as a country, also it is important. So this approach, that is broader outlook of the policy, is something that is there is a paradigmatic shift. Second thing is that on the foundations on which this policy is basing is also very great. The first is outcome-based learning. It talks about activity-based learning. It talks about a creative framework by higher institutions to provide, of which there will be innovation in terms of curriculum, in terms of evaluation, in terms of assessment by the teachers. So this is something which is, I think, very requirement of the time. It talks about defragmentation. As students of physics can also start music. It's important because it is also overall development. And also, I believe, as students of mathematics, knowing poetry we find Einstein was a musician. So we find Max Weber, one of the most important theoretical sociologists. He wrote about tremendously about music. So cross-sectoral learning can enhance intellectual ability. So this is something, if we understood at the beginning of the higher education itself, I think that's can give a new dimension to our intellectual curiosity, to our intellectual achievement. Third point which talks about is this linking a startup kind of thing for student as well as teacher innovation. Another thing it talks about is the institutional development plan for each and every education, higher educational institution. This starts from the bringing up the institutional leader, that is the principal, who are supposed to be a leader of the and have to come up with a due meritocratic and process of excellence, some kind of it. It talks about merit-based career progression for the faculty. It talks about a gradual autonomy, which there will be a board of governance, and they are saying that by 2040 it will become multidisciplinary. It will attain a gradual autonomy. It also talks about National Research Foundation, which is very important for a country like India, where Israel is spending 4.2%, US is spending 2.8%. India's spending on research is only 0.69%. So research is something that we must have to encourage among the teachers and among the interested students also. So this becomes a part of the institutional development plan, like an institution will come up in a periodical way and keep reviewing, keep contributing, keep adding value to it. So the value of an institution, the ranking of an institution will be coming out of it. Then how the institutional development plan has happened, it's all kind of a future linkages starting from accreditation and it's starting from funding. All these things will be coming from their point of view. So this is something I think, even though earlier policies also, there was mentioned in the 86 policy also, but I think this policy has explicitly mentioned something called institutional development. Another thing which is talked about, very interesting, is this higher educational institution clusters. And it is basically talking about that how the big institutions will also play the role of mentoring for other institutions. They're very important. It involves teachers' education. It also talks about rejuvenating the teachers' education institutions. So all these things are very important when we talk about the entire education sector, starting from the student, curriculum, teachers, accreditation, grading, evaluation, assessment, certification, all these things. These are in continuum. Until and unless we build up this system, I think, then we will not be able to prove ourselves as an important economic giant in the world, because education is giving this energy to give result and some kind of a, what you can say, like a massive impulse to the economic system. Regarding the structure also, it talks about higher education, it gives flexibility. It is giving like undergraduate courses, it is saying that there will be exit and entry will be choice, option. It is 3 to 4 years, but multiple exit and entry will be there. It is talking about a academic bank of credit, which will be a digital store of, which will easily, when I go to UPSC to my market evaluation, there will be, my credit system can be from my database itself, it can be crawled, it can be find out. For the post-graduation education, it is giving options. It gives several various kind of formula, whether I can have if I'm having a 4-year degree with 2-year research experience within it, then my 1 year itself can make PPG. If I'm having 3 year with 1 year itself, then 2 years. So they have given a multiple formula. It also talks about integrated kind, like now we are having law, integrated or MBA, integrated post-graduation. So it talks about a variety of model. It's not making it tied up. It is giving flexibility to an institution. But the entire thing, in my opinion, as a practitioner in the government, I feel that there is a huge investment has to come in terms of making the institutions ready for it. Because it's not about structure, I'm not about building. It is about building this and making this entire preparedness on the part of the educational curriculum, part of the institutional development plan. And it talks about like how universities in the US or universities in Canada or universities in England, how gradually each institution will come up as some kind of a center of its own, It will have its own autonomy. It will link to the other growth centers. It will link to policy, and it will link to industry, and it will link to government in terms of research. You will get your own funding from it. It will create a pool of researchers under a principal researchers or investigator. So all these things will need gradual huge amount of manpower, investment in manpower, and investment in training and capacity building. And that is I think a challenge. And since education is a concurrently subject where government of state and government of center both have a role to play, I think this huge federal challenge is now in front of the country. But overall, if you see the structure and the philosophy and the content and context wise, I think it is a very wise thought out policy. Me as a if I become I happen to become an education secretary also, it's a definitely some kind of a welcome move of the government, because this is the only way that government in the 2020 in terms of an education system, making it vibrant, thinking about having a skilled manpower workforce to provide for a maybe huge n number of $1 trillion economy talk about. This is until and unless we have this foundation, because until and unless we start, as Dr. Sood was thinking, that accessibility and inclusion, these are the two other things that this policy talks about. Until and unless we start including like our enrollment ratio, then rural workforce also gradually getting skilled. There may be migration, let there be an internal migration. It's not about migration. I am also a migrant to Kerala. Migration is just such not bad, but it should be a quality driven, value driven, and there should be a motivation which is productive. It should not be an exploitation based kind of system. So whenever we are talking about education and economy linkages, this policy can provide a huge impetus for a growing and robust Indian economy, which we dream to come up, because then only because at least we have to have a minimum 50 to 60% of skill force, maybe in a period of another 10 years time minimum. Because otherwise, the way we are talking about that our economy has to move, it cannot. So education system cannot stop. We must have to gear it up, and the teachers has to be trained accordingly. They have to be motivated. There should be their career progression should have to be there. They find it meaningful to contribute to the economy. Teachers are not just teaching a subject; they are preparing somebody for the economy. I can, from my personal example, like I see, like when I was, or we all were educated in our time of education, we found when we prepared for IAS, I had to read everything I knew, because of my education system actually properly could not make me fit for something that IAS will. I have to read it separately for everybody. You have to. That's what we say. Key for IAS, you need to prepare 2 months, because somewhere out there is the skill, that job set that will be required for an IAS officer. The analytical ability, the numerical sharpness, and the communication ability. All these things somehow we ignore. An IAS officer has to be a communicator. He has to be the public. Our entire education system never talks about communication ability. At that time at least, it was not talk only when I came to JNU. That's what I'm saying, that institution like JNU, it gives importance to an overall development. The way they gave importance to reflective thought of learning, participation in seminar, participation in interview, participation in term paper, also participation in events like cinema, theater, political activity, a lot of things. So all these things overall give a development and personality, which require, maybe I'm not saying that everyone should be in the IAS. I'm just giving my example because this is something like I have seen closely. So this communication kind of a development like was not at all existing in the entire scheme of things those days. I am not aware exactly now, maybe it might have come up, but in those point of time, these are something like you have to again reskill yourself. So why not this system itself do the skilling? Maybe a little bit of a orientation in course of time, but system be the major driver. So I think these are a few things I would like to highlight as somebody, as a concerned citizen of the country, how I see the new education policy in terms of the educational institution gearing up to have a vibrant economy. So it is just not about getting a job. It is also getting about a job as per my qualification, as per my credibility, as per my my own interest and my, what is suppose I want to be a electrician, I get training as a tailoring because there is a tailoring training center in my locality. It's not like that. If I have expertise in plumbing, I have expertise in welding. If I realize it as 8th or 9th standard, I should start moving an institution which gives me that direction. I can be the best plumber in the country. When I went to Germany, I remember when I happened to visit some factories in BMW, the master craftsman who came from BMW came to to address us. We found that the confidence level that he's having, then I came to know he's the man who actually ultimately certifies a BMW to come out of the, whether it's not bolt, everything is properly tied or not. So that's how this pride, the dignity of labor, the dignity of job, all these things have to come, and education system plays the most important role. It is not that only engineering is good, only medicine is good. A welder is also, if we go to German, if we go to South Korea, if we go to Taiwan, we find that the value and dignity of labor, and that has to start from education system. We have to give appreciation that it is not that somebody who is not qualified for MBBS, he has got qualified for pharmacist, is not bad. It is pharmacists is equally important. Paramedics are more important than doctors to run a health system. We just now know from the COVID situation. So it is not that, it is a functional requirement that we have to appreciate. And I think an education system, education system is also not about value. It has also started building those values in our mind, so that in course of time, we bring a confident, more matured, more nurtured, skilled force, which comes and proudly said that I'm educated here. Like I'm today saying I'm educated in JNU. I feel proud of it. So like that, so this kind of a concept have also to come from, like Cotton College gives, I am a Cottonian, because it gives us some kind of a intercultural importance of starting in Cotton College is not just about the mark. It is also about the intercultural exposure that we get in Cotton College. Somebody when come from Dhokwakhana, when come from Mongoloi, when come from Tinsukia, when come from Dhubri, the landscape in Cotton College, all of you find that this Assam, the culture of Assam is so vast. The language dimensions are so vast. Somebody from Borpeta, he speaks a different language from somebody from Morigaon. So this understanding is also part of education. Education has to talk about this holistic, integrated development. And all these are important as an education policy to talk about, because policy is something we will start, that the policy is not the end. Policy is the sparking, igniting point. How we internalize the policy in implementation, in building structure, can bring success. I think I would conclude, and I can respond. I'm free to respond. I'm thankful to Dhokwakhana College for giving me this opportunity, or for giving me this honor. I'm grateful to my friend Jamini and Dr. Soot and all the entire faculty for providing me this opportunity. Thank you so much. I would respond if some questions are there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So we more or less know all about this sort of issues which have been developed in the new education policy. We have talked about the vocationalization, skill enhancement, employability enhancement, value education. You talked about value education, cultural heritage, of course, research, clustering of college, autonomy which has been given to the institution, and the importance that we need to pay attention to the vernacular education. Thank you for your enlightenment, sir. Sir, we have a question. The new education policy 2020 keeps the provision of entry of universities from other countries. Sir, what is the principle behind it? Is it a step of privatization of higher education?
Yeah, thank you, Jamini. The policy talks about it. Do you want me to respond, Jamini, in this?
Pardon?
Do you want me to respond, Jamini?
Yes, should I continue the question again?
Yeah.
The policy 2020 is the provision of entry of universities from other countries. Sir, what is the principle behind this? Is it a step of privatization of higher education?
Yeah, it's you see, the policy talks about value-based quality private institutions also. It is not, policy is not only talking about nationalization of education, but it is saying that it should be careful and qualitative. So there will be a council at the highest level and they will have to fix out the modalities. How initially they are talking about the also student exchange between these higher universities in a more intensive way than we do presently. However, in course of time, there is our universities can also go outside. It's not that they are only come. Our universities can also make center outside, and higher educational institutions also. I think it is once it's the question of autonomy. We're talking about gradual autonomy, and it's not exactly, I think, privatization. Let us not see it in terms of privatization. The private institutions coming is not just a privatization, because it's perhaps we should differentiate between commercialization of agriculture and education and this privatization. It is a good, if tomorrow MIT one unit of MIT want to come with Delhi School of Economics, I think we should welcome it. It is, but the thing is that how in course of time, that's what I'm saying, a large lot of the policy will also depend about how we mold it. Policy document is giving only the guideline. It is a framework. How we design the subsequent corollaries are equally important. So we have to case all this, a broad framework to be made, and on the basis of that, there will be a highest council will be there, which will look after all the matter. As the policy says, they have referred about a council, All India Council they're talking about. And I think this council will talk about funding, grading, accreditation, and also general matters of education. There are 4 matters the council is talking about. I think it will lie at that level. The policy is not very clear about the modalities, how it will be. I think it will require more discussions and more deliberations in this regard by the not like somebody alone like me, but somebody who are more experienced in that field, who has done this job earlier. I leave it like that.
Thank you, sir. We don't have other questions, but we have got response from most of the participants that it was a wonderful delivery, and I do feel also. Okay, sir, we have another question.
Sir, we have enjoyed your session. Thank you, sir. I would just like to ask you, sir, regarding this new policy, new education policy. Is it a kind of quest for our roots? Because it's been mentioned that we are in a state of reviving our own languages like Sanskrit, Pali, and all that. You have also just briefed us about that as well. So is it a kind of situation that we need to just revive those glorious days of the past? Because in that policy, actually, it's been mentioned about universities like Patliputra, Takshashila, mentioned here. So I would just like to know from your side, actually, what is your take on that?
Yeah, I think you are correct that policy, I think for the first time, because earlier I have also read the earlier policies also. So in this connection, when I told you that I will make this deliberation, and this policy talks about almost in all parts. It has, I think, 4 or 5 major parts in the policy. In all parts, somehow it refers to the glory on, and also not only the glory, but also revival of the glory. It talks about that how the knowledge system that the country developed over thousands of years, particularly the treasure house of literature that we have in the Upanishads, Vedas, Vedantas, and all 6 forms of knowledge, whether that is Sankhya, Vyakaran, Jyotis, Yoga, Ayurveda, all this traditional knowledge of the country. Perhaps I think in the last 20 years, we have been seeing the growing importance of yogas, Ayurvedas kind of things in the country. And yoga and Ayurveda are the 2 things which have become widely acceptable throughout the world, if I'm not wrong, at least in last 20 years. So somehow there has been already a tendency of looking to the East, to the Western materialistic philosophy, which has found certain limitations and has thought about the going back to the search for meditation, peace. These are the things. In fact, now if you go to any countries in the world, they will take you to some meditation center, and particularly Western countries. I have traveled quite a couple of them and have been able to. So these are certain things like you can see the best of the past, some of the relevant connection, relevant principles which a culture has developed over a period of time. I think the policy talks about giving importance in all overall, and whether it be physical fitness, whether it be medicine, and whether it be development of philosophy, and whether it is a respect for cultural heritage. But only thing is, my doubt is that it should not be a too much kind of a nationalist kind of an approach. It is good that we respect our cultural heritage, and I also highly support and agree for it. But at the same time, the best in the outside world also, we have to respect it. It is when you talk about also holistic development, we are talking about education system. When you talk about holistic development of a personality, there's nothing wrong in appreciating the spiritualism of the country, the spiritual tradition of the country. There's nothing wrong in that. But at the same time, also it is important to appreciate the development of Western knowledge and thought. It is good the understanding the huge heritage of Vedic mathematics that we are having. It is important to understand a philosophy like Tantra, which is so vast. We just limit Tantra by only one word. But if you read Tantra, at one point of time in my life, I wanted to study Tantra. I went to some parts in Haridwar, Uttarakhand, and Himalayan hills, and tried to meet some people and understand. It's actually just not the Tantra that we just believe it by limiting it to some kind of a black magic or sexuality. It is a huge discipline. So it is also important to understand the value system the entire civilization and the culture lays down. But I also do put the reservation that it is important to have respect for the Western culture, Western civilization, that few of the philosophies that the West has given to us are also equally important. So it is true that it has talked about the Nalanda, Pataliputra, Taxila, and a lot of the traditional systems revival. In fact, those universities also where, if you have been to Nalanda, I went to Nalanda some years back. It was a huge system. There was a brilliant integrated learning. It was a learning house, learning place, starting from Buddhism to medicine to mathematics to astrology and to yoga. It was a huge amount of I think there were more than 7,000 to 10,000 students used to be there. There used to be 10 different big campuses. So it's all, only thing is that how best we can capture it and also understand the importance of cultural heritage without neglecting fully the growth and development of knowledge as an universal system. I take it that way. Thank you.
Sir, we have another question.
Yeah.
It is asked by one of our colleagues, Dr. Sunit Kumar Bhiya. The question is asked. It's also available in the chat box. Sir, the new education policy seeks to provide autonomy to all higher educational institutions by 2030.
35.
Sir, is it possible to maintain the quality of education if all the instructional institutions are provided autonomy?
Yeah, it's you are correct. There is a huge challenge. Whether because what do we definitely mean? Autonomy is autonomy of number one, autonomy of functioning, autonomy of finance, and all other academic matters. So that's why that they're saying this institutional development plan is very, very important. How we standardize it, because when we are saying about institutional autonomy, does it mean that there will be no and not a national framework or benchmark? One is when you are saying institutional autonomy, the institution is deciding for itself and giving flexibility to operate within it. So what are the institutional framework? What is the benchmark of institutional framework? Whether those institutional framework are having, like earlier we were having like something like UGC or how it is being linked to that. So that is very important. Therefore, that's what they are giving a time of 15 to 20 years time, this entire process to roll out. It has to be experiential, experimental. It cannot be a software downloading model. It is not a software will be available for autonomy, which should be downloaded, and from tomorrow on we will start. That's what they're saying. It is that every higher education institution has to develop a cluster system. That is, they are saying whether in terms of research, they are saying three kind of intensivity: research, academic, or research and academic. And they can float from one to the. An institution can desire to be research institution. An institution can desire to be teaching institution, or both. So it can be in a gradual way. So they are not talking about autonomy from tomorrow onward. No, it's not. It's not that tomorrow it will be disruption, everything will start. No, they are saying that's why they put a timeline 2035 for multidisciplinary to reach, and around by 2040 the system cycle will be complete. That's what they are taking. They're giving a huge time frame, and during this period, because it has to, the base also will have to accordingly gradually shift. Then only it will happen. So it's not autonomy of from tomorrow onward that there will be stop of funding. It's not like that. So the entire structure has to come up, then only it will happen. So it's not a software downloading kind of thing. It's a gradual process, and it's some kind of a organic growth for an organization. One university may take 5 years, another may take 10 years also. It's not that everybody has to come by 2021, all institutions. No, it's not like that. It's not a some kind of a exportable model or transportable model. It is an organic growth. Every institution will have to understand its own limitations, how they can actually get opportunities, get research opportunities, get industry, agriculture, policy linkages, government linkages. So these are all various things will have to organically evolve. It's not exactly some kind of a one minute solution or a transportable solution.
Thank you, sir. We enjoyed your speech. As for the agenda, right now we have vote of thanks. I offer vote of thanks to Nath sir, IAS Secretary, Water Resource and Labour Commissioner, Government of Kerala, for being the keynote speaker of the national webinar held today on the topic New Education Policy and Higher Education. We are happy that your thought-provoking and pathfinding deliberation enlightened all of us. I also thank Dr. Jugananda Sud, Principal, Dokwakhana College, for guiding us in every step of our preparation. I also offer vote of thanks to Chitrakumar Kumar, Vice Principal of our college, for his helping hand. Of course, all the members of the organizing committee, my dear colleagues, I also offer vote of thanks to all of you. And at last but not the least, the participants, your active participation has made our program successful. I once again offer vote of thanks to all of you. Thank you all. So,
I also thank all of you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, Jamini. And thank you, Dr. Sood, the entire team. And I'm really grateful and thankful to you for providing me the opportunity. Hope it was useful. And I appreciate the initiative of the college for taking series of webinars. Hope you will continue with it. And my all the best and best wishes to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We have an announcement. Feedback form will be linked up in the group. Dear participants, you are requested to submit the feedback form, and then you will get the e-certificate spontaneously. Okay, with this word, we conclude the session. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you.